In your 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond, you deserve to live your best life. Say goodbye to preconceived notions and let's shatter those stereotypes together. Get ready to own your vitality because age, well, that's just a number.
Hey everybody, it's BJ.
And Ruth.
And we're back talking about health and fitness. And today we are going to talk about the truth about training to failure. So you might be wondering, what does that mean? Well, really it means you've gone to the end of your ability to do any more reps without assistance. Okay? So
Or without proper form.
yeah, that too.
If you've come out of your proper form, you
may as well pack it
training
up.
to
Yeah,
failure.
because you're going to hurt yourself.
Yeah,
We've talked
exactly.
about that a lot. So anyway, thank you for watching today. If you're watching for the first time or you haven't, please take a minute and subscribe to the channel, like the video. It just helps us with getting the word out there. And let's get right into it. So training to failure is especially relevant as we age, because one of the things that happens as we age is we have joints that maybe need a little bit more coaxing and a little bit more warming up and a little bit more recovery. Not just maybe, we need all of those things. So let's talk about training to failure. And to start with, we want to talk about something called relative effort. So relative effort is the amount of effort you exert versus how much you're able to exert. Okay? And from that, we get a concept called reps in reserve. So reps in reserve mean how many reps do I have left before I get to failure. Now, if you're just starting back in the gym and starting your health journey again, or maybe you've never gone to the gym, you're in your 40s or 50s and you're just starting back in the gym, it's going to take you a little while to figure out what your reps in reserve or your RIR is, because it takes time to know, okay, I thought I had 2 or 3 reps left, but I was actually a little bit stronger than I thought. And that number may change from week to week as you get physically stronger as well. So, there's a part to that where we want to figure out roughly where is the end that we can get to and safely perform a rep. And then basically as we back off from that, we come up with the reps in reserve number. Okay. And people, usually there's 1 or 2 camps. There's the train to failure. And I remember I was this at one point where every work set had to be to absolute failure. And we're going to talk about this. And really we want to understand, is that viable? Should that be something that you incorporate into your training regimen? Okay. So let's start with this. There's a study recently published by Martin Ruffalo, and I'm going to read the quote right off of here. In the Journal of Sports Sciences, here's how the quote reads: similar muscle hypertrophy, and hypertrophy is just the growth of muscles, similar muscle hypertrophy following 8 weeks of resistance training to momentary muscular failure, so that's absolute failure, or with repetitions in reserve in resistance-trained individuals. So basically what this study found, and they did it on quads, okay? They did it with 2 exercises on quads, so it wasn't just going in and doing 4 sets of 1 exercise. Sometimes you'll find some studies have done where they've gone in and done just 1 exercise for 4 sets to failure and found that they'll get positive results from that versus reps in reserve, but that's not how we train normally when we go to the gym. Right? So what this found is it was basically the same whether they were training to failure or leaving 2 reps in reserve. Okay? So what does that mean for you? Well, does that mean we should never train to failure? There may be a place for training to failure in your training regimen, but there's a couple of things you need to take into account when training to failure. Not all exercises are created equal when training to failure. For example, if you train to failure on squats, you better have a good spotter or know when you're going to get out of it, or have some catch bars or have something, because you're carrying this weight on your shoulders, right? So there's it's just harder to get there with something like squats, where if you're on a machine, like maybe you're doing pec deck, or maybe you're doing even pull downs or something like that, training to failure is maybe safer. And you're also, because you're moving the weight, but you're not necessarily, if you fail, it's not going to drop on you, right? If you train to failure on bench and you don't have a spotter, that's not good. Okay? So, number one, when we talk about should I train to failure, here's what I would say: not all the time. There may be a place to put it in your training, in your program, but if you're just getting back to the gym, or you're seeing enough results for your liking based on your current training, you don't all necessarily need to go and change anything or adjust things. Sometimes we have to understand, when it comes to training to failure, that's a lot of what's the word I'm looking for? That's a lot of stress on the body.
So I would come in and say, are you wanting to put that kind of stress on your body at this point in your
And that's exactly what it is, because
at your age.
As we age, there's the recovery time, so we need more recovery time. There's what is it on our joints? What's the impact like on our joints of doing that? There's, again, just the safety of the exercise, depending on what exercise that we're doing. And there's actually also been a strength reduction noticed from training to failure. Now, here's the other part. You can train to failure and still see good results, but typically that takes a longer rest period. And it may not be realistic for you to say, look, I'm going to take 7 minutes or 10 minutes between sets. Now we're getting into powerlifter kind of mindset where they take longer between sets.
I've never done that.
And right? So here's the thing. If we know, and this is what this research shows us now, and I think we've always kind of known this, that having a couple of reps in reserve, your body will respond similar to if you go right to failure, but it won't put your body in as much stress and strain. It'll, in theory, be easier on your joints. One of the things I try to do now to be easier on my joints is when I'm doing a major muscle group, so let's say it's chest, I'm going to pre-exhaust my chest before I get to any pressing moves. So I'm going to do, whether it's flies or pec deck or cable crossovers or something like that, to pre-exhaust my chest so that I'm going to be easier on my joints when I start benching or incline or whatever I'm doing, because I don't have to go as heavy to get to that point of failure. And really, you should be looking to fail somewhere around, and I believe in this study, and it was on legs, but I believe in this study they were rep ranges between 8 and 12 when they did this. So that's probably a good range to be in. And they found that these findings were consistent whether it was men or women. So what does that mean for your training? I think for us, especially as we're aging, especially as we're stepping either back into the gym or increasing our time in the gym, that we take a real good look at what we're doing, what our results are like right now, and evaluate what we need to change. Maybe you're saying, hey, I trained to failure on everything, and I just heard from what you said I don't need to. Well, maybe you can train to failure once in a while, but do it safely, and maybe you're doing it on preacher curls, where, again, with a good weight so you don't hurt yourself, but where it's not the end of the world if you don't get back that final rep when you fail. Or make sure you have a good spotter. I'm a big believer in good spotters when you're going to take yourself past the point of no return, right? So, and a good spotter is someone who can help you enough. I just think about bench, because a good spotter is someone who helps you enough to get past the sticking point, and if it's one more rep or whatever, help you as necessary. I had a spotter one time where he, great guy, I was thankful that he was there to help me, but he helped me with so much of the bench. I know how strong I was, or I am, and then I was doing bench, where I was kind of like, this should actually be a back exercise for you right now, because I think you're doing more rows than I'm doing bench. So it's important to have a good spotter to help you with that when you're going to failure. So is there a place for it? Sure. Does it need to be every workout? No. Does it need to be every exercise? No. So how do I figure out where I get to when there's 2 or 3 reps left in the tank. But you're going to have to figure that out over time to find out where you fail. And that's part of why we track our lifts and log what you're doing from workout to workout and week to week. You'll be able to identify those things. So now the other part that's so vital for the recovery part of things, especially as we age, because we take longer to recover, is making sure that we're on top of our nutrition, making sure that we've talked about nutrition, making sure we're on top of supplementation, and making sure that we're getting enough quality sleep so that we can allow our body to recover. So, training to failure, sure, there's some value to put it in your program, but if you're not sure what that even means or when you should have it in your program, you're probably better served just to do your workouts with 2 to 3 reps left. And if you have a coach, you can have this conversation with your coach about, hey, when and where do I incorporate training to failure? Should I incorporate training to failure? I'll use the example for me for bench press. I don't bench very much anymore, but when I do, I usually leave a couple of reps in the tank so that it's easier on my elbows and easier on my shoulders. So that's it in a nutshell. So that's the truth about training to failure. Do you need to train to failure to see gains in the gym? Not necessarily. Is there value in doing it? Maybe. But it's got to be part of the bigger picture and part of what's happening. What we see from the research and what we know is that you can go to 2 to 3 reps before you're out of gas, and your body will respond to that, provided everything else is in order as far as your nutrition, your sleep, your supplementation, all of those things. So thank you for joining us today. If you haven't, please like and subscribe to the video. It just helps us with getting the word out, and we'll see you next time.